Welcome to Slim Nation's One-on-One podcast with conversations featuring the host, James Slim Overton.
Well, welcome everyone to the Slim Nation's 101's podcast. I'm James Slim Overton, of course, and I'm here this morning. And before I get started, if you're watching live on Facebook, please let us know you're there. If you want to make comments, if you want to shout out our guests, feel free to do that, and I'll try to recognize you. If you're watching live on our Facebook channel, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. That's very important. Okay, thanks a lot for joining us again. And we have a special guest with us here this morning. His name is Ronald Cross, and he was raised here in Portsmouth, Virginia. And he is a high school, we'll talk about is and was a high school referee. And presently, he is president of the Virginia Basketball Association. And thank you, Ron. And if I can call you Ron, most people call you Ron or Ron.
Yep, they call me Ron.
Okay, I always ask that because people would ask me, would you prefer James or Jim? And I say, okay, I prefer James. And they say, okay, Jim. Wouldn't even pay attention to what I preferred. But now I just go by Slim, so that solves all that. But anyway, I want to thank you for your service. You served in the armed forces, and I went to IC North. I went to Craddock High School here in the city of Portsmouth. And what was the college? Studied at University of Louisville. And before we get started on you, I want to ask you, just this past weekend, we had the finals of the college girls and the boys last night. What did you think about that? Did it end the way you thought it would? I mean, we start these brackets way ahead of time, and now with social media, a lot of them are media darlings, and people pick, not so much the teams unless they went to the school because of the exposure they get. But as far as the games, and in the girls' games, Final Four, all the way up from the Sweet 16, those games were amazing. And a lot of people say even more exciting than some of the men's games. But that's just because of the attention they be getting, and rightfully so. But how did you enjoy the games, and was the outcome like you might have predicted since you were avid basketball watcher?
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about my bracket. If I had started it at the end, those were my two picks.
Yeah.
Now, everything else in between, my bracket was smashed.
Yeah, well, most people, it was kind of hard because there's so many good teams out there, and every year you get those upsets. But that's just the way it is. But it makes it more exciting that way. And the men's was the same with you?
Well, let me say, I think the excitement nationwide has gone towards women's athletics, and the game just seems to be more exciting. And I can say that I know more female basketball players than I do in the men's game.
I do too.
Some of those names I was hearing for the first time. I'm like, who is this guy? Never heard of him. But again, it's the nationwide focus is on basketball, and for a reason. They're out there balling.
And I think it's great as far as the ladies the game. If I've been watching, go all the way back to ODU and start watching it then, because they are a local college here, but they won a national championship and got some focus and had some great players come out there. So the women have been doing it for a long time. They're just getting the more exposure now, which is, like I said, rightfully so. And it's just good entertainment. And I hope people keep in mind that it is entertainment and it is a game. Some people are taking it a little too far personal, and these are young college students, and they're still learning. Their brains are still developing, and they should take it a little easy and take the game for what it is, a game,
Right.
and entertainment.
And they're
Anyway,
not
Ron,
only
let's get
learning, but
go
they're
ahead.
earning as well. Things have changed in the game of college sports.
Yes, indeed. So it's a lot more involved. Now there's money involved. So I guess things can get serious. It's always been betting on college sports, but anyway, it is what it is, and we just need to enjoy it and take it in, and have a good time watching it. But let's get to you, Ron. You grew up. I mentioned you grew up here in the city of Portsmouth, and you've been a referee, and I just want to know, coming up, was being a referee on your mind? Did you go to games or when you were playing, say, wow, and saw the referees there and said, wow, I sure would want to be that? Because I can remember playing, and the referees was just a part of the game. I mean, you almost took them for granted, but you knew they would have to be there. If you played organized ball and you went to play a game and was no referees, it would have been something really missing there. Because you remember playing street ball, we used to call our own fouls.
Yeah, my ball. Yeah, that's a foul. You foul.
My ball. And the other guy had to respect it or respect it. It's kind of hard to even imagine we call our own fouls and the other person respect it. And sometimes they would lash back. But anyway, I mean, so where did the interest, start with you? I'm sure it started with basketball. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it actually started with basketball. I was a basketball player, being 5'8". It's not your typical basketball player. But let me tell you, I grew up in a neighborhood downtown, Newtown, right outside of the shipyard.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived on the corner of 6th and Jefferson. And right across from my house, I lived on the corner, was Thomas Jefferson Playground. And we had 2 courts across from my house. So day and night, I was always on the basketball court. When I went to high school, I went out and the season was about to start, and Craddock had a new coach, a guy named John Sumner. And I walked in the gym one day and said, when does practice start? I knew it was the next day. And he said, what grade are you in? I said, I'm a freshman. And he said, well, I don't play freshman, but you can try out for the JV team. I say, you don't play freshman. I'm better than those guys you got on your team now. So with me talking so much, he challenged me to a game. And
the coach challenged you.
Yeah.
1-on-1.
Yep. He ended up winning. He beat me 15-11. But I gave him some work out there on the court. And at the end, he said, now get out of my gym and don't you come back no more. So the next day he stopped me in the hallway and said, you pretty good. But again, I don't play freshman. So you're welcome to try out for JV. And at the time, I don't know if you remember Mr. Manning. Larry Manning was a teacher at Norcom for a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was my history teacher, and he was also my JV basketball coach. So I played during the season, was the leading scorer on the JV team. And usually the better players at the end of the season get moved up to varsity for a few games.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I was only a one-dimensional player. I didn't know how to play defense, but I could put the ball in the basket. And so I didn't get moved up to varsity. Was kind of disappointed. A guy named Mark Jernigan got moved up. They only moved one guy. And I outscored him during the whole season, but Jernigan was a more well-rounded player than I was because I only saw one thing, and that was the basket. So
yeah.
Yeah. So how I got started in officiating, at the end of my high school year, my mom gave us one choice. You're either going in the military or you're going to college. And so I chose to go to Tidewater Community College. I was a recreation and physical education major. And during the intramural season, there was one referee that showed up for the game. my instructor for my courses, it was called officiating at games. She came up to me one day and say, "Hey, we one referee short, and you're doing pretty good in the class. So you think you would like to referee this basketball game?" I said, "Sure." I had a black and white shirt that she gave me, went out there with a guy named Jim Upton, never forget him, and refereed the game. I stunk it up.
I mean, before that, what kind of experience have you had? I
never had any experience. Here's your shirt. Go out there and referee the game.
You just knew the game, and just like I mentioned earlier, or we talked about earlier, we used to call our own fouls. So you thought you knew.
Yeah, I knew how to call a foul.
How hard could this be?
Yeah, but it was hard.
Yeah.
But I made it through the game. And Jim Upton happened to be with the high school association that was then the Southern Board, that was run by a guy named Paris Carson. I don't know if that name is familiar with you, but he was with the CIAA for a while. And he did high school games as well. But Jim Upton took me under his wing. He assigned me some recreation games, and I went out there with guys like, these may be some familiar names: Melvin Beeman, DeWitt Shepard.
Yeah.
Refereed a lot of city games with those guys. Got my earned my wings, I guess, working Portsmouth Parks and Recreation basketball. So that's where
which was some really good competition,
Oh, absolutely, especially.
So you couldn't get better training than there,
Yeah, that's a fact. So I enjoyed it, and eventually I moved on to high school associations. And through my service in the Army, I traveled around the country. I was in an association in Indiana, in Kentucky, and when I went to Europe, I was also on 2 basketball associations there. So basketball has just always been with me. In fact, the date January 7th, 1977 is when I refereed my first basketball game.
Wow. You've been doing it for a while, and you have to have the passion for it, because it's sure not for the money.
No, no, definitely not.
You can't raise a family just being a referee. But,
no, you can't. You can't. But, it's a good part-time job.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But and so so you had the experience in the military, and so coming back to the high school, I'm sure there's some regulations. What did you have to do to get certified to become a referee? And once you're certified, once you're a referee, is it sort of repetitive, something you have to, every year you have to, make sure that I'm sure you have to make sure you're up with the rules, because the rules can change.
Right. So every year, in order to be a certified referee under the National Federation of High Schools, you have to take an exam. It's usually a 50-question test. It's open book. But again, some of the better learning experiences are by opening the book. So you get the question, you go to the book. You usually know which chapter files are located in, which chapter violations are covered in, and you have to score at least 80 to have a passing score, and to be considered for postseason games like district playoffs, regional playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. So every year, prior to that first scholastic game, you have to be certified as a state official. Or as a national official, I should say. Yep.
So, as a high school referee, I think, is it ever times where I know I've seen some high school referees move up to the college level, and I've seen them go to CIAA and ACC and things like that. Is that a goal for? And I'm sure at that level the pay is more, because you have to dedicate a certain amount of time to that, because it involves a lot of travel. Right. Is that the goal for most referees, or most of them are satisfied to stay on that high school level, because you are at a level where you're seeing these players develop, you know, and you're kind of, as a referee, kind of helping them develop, because you know, the fouls and knowing how to conduct yourself on the court is a part of the learning process. So some people might want to stay right there, but is it a goal for most referees that you think to move up to a different level?
I think when you first come in, you're unsure. You want to just get your feet wet doing it. And once you advance or start getting better at the craft, if you will, you have aspirations to go higher. Let me tell you, I refereed 2.5 seasons of college basketball. Of course, this was back in the 90s. And I was in the Mountain West. I did 4 games my first season, 6 games my second season. And going into my third season, I had 4 new assignments, and 2 of them I had to turn in because of some issues that happened in life. I became a single parent, and my children were more important to me at that time than basketball.
Indeed.
So I stepped away from scholastic basketball. Still did some recreation basketball on the side, and that's when I was continuing to work with my original mentor, who was Jim Upton. And back in 2006, I came back into high school basketball. And it's kind of been my passion to continue on that course since then. Of course, in 2006, I wasn't a young man. But again, I wanted to stay in the game, so it made no sense for me to try to get back into the college game. So I stayed at high school, was content with that. And at this point, even though I say retiring, I'm going to scale back the amount of activity I do, but I still want to be connected to the game of basketball. I love the sport, and I love officials the game of basketball, because eventually somebody's going to have to replace me and all the other gray-faced guys.
And of course, being the president of the organization keep you really involved.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, you said you started in 77, and I'm go back to the time I played in 69, 70, you know, starting the JV. And back then, most of the games, you know, because we were playing mostly black schools then, and it was mostly black referees. Was that the way it was then? I thought I started seeing it change by the time I became a senior. You might see some referees, white referees, but it was mostly still black referees doing us. And when we started playing Craddock and Wilson and things like that, it sort of changed. But leading up to that, was that the way it was? You know, the black referees refereed the black games, and the white referees refereed the predominantly white schools. Was that it, or when did it start mixing up there?
Well, I say it might have changed in the mid 80s, because, as you know, urban schools play a different brand of basketball. You know, Booker T versus Norcom is not a game you want to put somebody in who may get the crowd irate or whatever. And of course, that's probably a more difficult game than Great Bridge playing either one of those Chesapeake schools back in the day. And of course, you know, we came through high school in the 70s, so we were just getting into that integration thing.
Right.
So me going to Craddock, I was the first member of my family to attend the school other than Norcom. I had a sister that graduated from Norcom in 70, Alva Cross. My brother, Ernest Cross, Pope Chop. He was in your class, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in my class. Pope Chop.
Yeah, my brother Donnie attended 2 years at Norcom. And then along came this.
He was on JV when I was on varsity.
Donnie played JV. And in fact, you guys played under who? Coach Swab back then?
Well, the JV was Swab, and Baker was my coach.
Yep.
Bobby Baker.
Yep. Bobby Baker. Yeah, I want to get a technical foul real quick.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. But the schools were different back then.
Yes.
And with integration, that brought along a lot of changes as far as athletics are concerned. So you started seeing a different mix of officials.
And you said, it's like, and we talked about this in our pre-talk about, the games. Let's like you mentioned Booker T and the Crestwood games, and you go there, and when you go in the gym, the fans are right there at you, and I can remember sitting on the bench. Fans could touch us on the back of our head, if we are head on the way. Except for Crestwood, they had all the fans were on one side and the benches were on another side, so the fans couldn't get to the players. But it was kind of intimidating sometimes. You go in JFK in Suffolk, and you're sitting on the bench, and their fans right behind you. If the Norcom fans didn't travel with you. And that could be intimidating. And how was that for a referee? Because sometimes, fans saw certain calls one way, and you all saw it the right way. I'll put it that way.
Right.
And they didn't agree, and they could get quite aggressive. How intimidating was that sometimes? Because sometimes it would be intimidating for the teams to go and visit certain schools.
Right. Well, let me tell you,
we knew what was going to happen at the end.
The loudest gym I've ever worked in my life was Booker T. Even though they built a new high school from the older Booker T High School.
Yeah, and that's the one I know.
Their bleachers are still right on the sideline.
Yeah.
So it's still a very loud gym. When I came back to Virginia, one of my first varsity games was Norcom versus Granby. And of course, they were rivals then.
Yeah.
So they would have the loud fans, sellout crowd. They would have the DJ blasting the music. They have their pep band, the loudest gym that I'd ever experienced at any point. So fans aren't like they used to be. Back in the day, they were loud and rowdy. But there's a control mechanism in crowds now where you just wave to the officer on the sideline and say, hey, remove this guy. He's not being a fan. He's being somewhat of a fanatic.
So the referees have that power to remove fans, unruly fans?
Absolutely. The high school federations, along with the athletic directors, the principals and administrations of the school, they want to make basketball a safer sport. You may have seen some of the clips on YouTube or whatever where fans or parents get in altercations with officials. And basketball needs to remain a safe sport. And our officials need to be protected at all costs. Because if you don't have basketball officials, good, competent basketball officials on the court, then the game is going to deteriorate. And we'll go back to like we used to do on the playground, like my ball, that's a foul. Yeah. And I don't think we want to go back in time. I think we want good, competent officials that we can put on the court, who can manage a game and who can get the kind of results, kind of like the championship games that we've been seeing over the last several weeks.
Yeah, because I've seen over the years how officials can gain that respect, and even the fans respect that official because, he lets them know in so many words, I'm in charge here, so you're all gonna have to govern yourself accordingly. And we mentioned about a official back during our day, and I never seen anybody like him since then. They call him Charlie Red, and he was really animated. When he called a foul on you, you knew it. I mean, no, you number 52, and sometimes you couldn't really get mad at him when you called it because of the way he called it. And in most cases, with any officials, most of the time we knew, because you can recall how when the whistle blew, sometimes we automatically put our hand up because we knew.
Right. In fact, it was a requirement back then because
yeah,
the official would
they don't
call
do
the
that
foul and would point at the person who did it. We call that bird dogging in official.
Yeah.
Would point at the guy who did it, and you had to raise your hand.
You had to let everybody know. Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, it was me. I had to.
But that's what I was saying. Most time we put our hand up before you even call our name because we knew we had, fouled that person. So that's why I was saying earlier, it's a learning process for the high school players as well. You know when you making a foul, and that's part of well, I won't do that again.
Right. Well, let me tell you, the better officials are good communicators. Not only communicate with their mechanics and signals, they communicate verbally with the players, with the coaches, with whoever is involved. If you ask me a question in a basketball term, I'll give you a basketball answer.
Right.
If you are creating some difficulty on the court, I'll come to you before I have to blow the whistle and give you a technical foul.
Yeah.
I'll say
calm it down.
21, that's enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And if two players are going at each other, I say, if you want to stay in the game, you need to get that out of the game. So either you're going to leave or that's going to leave. So it's good to communicate. You don't always have to blow your whistle to get a point across. Yeah. Better officials use their voice to manage the game.
Yeah, because indeed, Ron, because it's a game that can a passion, a competition like that, and especially with the, like you mentioned, Grammy and Narcombe, the rival schools, and you go back further, seemed like all the schools we played with Booker T and all those black schools, everybody was rivals. Right. Every week you were playing somebody that you really wanted to beat. So the emotions can get out of hand because you had guys that. Some guys didn't like each other. A lot of us knew each other.
Right.
Knew
each other outside of the gym.
Yeah, it might be. You might live in the same neighborhood and go to different schools, right. The way it was, and so we knew each other, and we a lot of times we were friends. But in the heat of the battle, the referee had to take control of that, or games could really get out of hand.
Yeah, no doubt.
We've seen that. So how it had to be fun sometimes. Some of the games I've seen some games that that had comical moments, and sometimes I would see the referees even laughing at some of the things that would happen out there, or certain things that the player did. Was that a part of your experience, that made you stay so long, because you knew you had a job to do, and seeing those players develop, but sometimes it was just plain fun getting out there.
Oh, absolutely. If I didn't enjoy the game, I wouldn't still be doing it at this advanced age. Let me tell you, part of the pregame I do with my officials before we go on the court, as we dapping each other up before we take our positions on the court. The last thing I say is, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Because it's an exciting game. You'll find that most officials have played basketball at some level or another, and it's an enjoyment of the sport.
It's just an extension of what they did in the past, and remaining involved with the sport. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, lost my thought right there, but also you all had to, at one point it was no women officials. When did that open up, and why wasn't it earlier? I mean, I guess it's just like anything else, so women weren't involved in anything, because even when the girls' games were developed, you still had male officials.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it wasn't even a thought in some of the females' mind of being an official, because it was looked at as something that male did, and it wasn't room for the females.
Right.
So when did that start opening up for females to come in?
Well, I can't say when it really started, and for the most part, most officials associations are male dominated.
Right.
Are predominantly males.
It might have been an unspoken word that this is for males.
Right.
Nobody even thought about if females were even coming into the fold.
Right. And I tell you, that's not the case in our association, because I'll pat ourselves on the back by saying that the Virginia Basketball Officials Association is the first association across the country to have 3 women officiate a high school state championship final. And those were excellent officials who did an excellent job in the game. And I salute our commissioner, Tony Brothers, for being the person who created that idea that, hey, this sport is gone beyond just men. You know, there's some excellent women officials out there doing the game, and we want to put them on the biggest stage. And I can say that our officials who did that game, it was Shalisa Painter, Danielle Smith, and Menage Finney Smith. That Finney Smith name may ring a bell.
Yeah, a family of basketball players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even down to the mother.
Yeah.
To Desiree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, this game has opened up a lot to women. Some of our better officials are women, and that's a good thing for the game. And we continue to open the door for women to be put out in the front of the game because they learn the game, they're athletic, they look good in presenting their mechanics to the table. There are just a lot of good female officials out there. And again, we keep our door open for them to come out and continue the game. There was a time that when women finished college sports, they were done with it. But officiating is a great avenue for them to continue their passion for the game of basketball.
Yeah, and I remember my thought that I lost earlier. I wanted to ask you, you know, 47 years in there. Most of the officials that are in the game be in it for a long time, as long as they can physically handle it. And
Right.
Speaking of the physicality, what do you all do to make sure you stay in shape? That's a lot of running up and down. I mean, you are running up and down with these teenagers,
Right.
you know. And if it's a fast game, you know, you have some teams that's what they do. They run, you
Right.
know. And then you got 2 teams playing each other, and both of them run. So you have to run up and down along with that. So what do you do to make sure to maintain, you know, to stay in shape, to be able to keep up with that, and especially after so many years?
Right. Well, let me tell you, I referee 10 months out of a year normally. So I think basketball is my go-to as far as cardiovascular activity is concerned. I try to maintain a strict diet. Back in 2003, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And of course, that was because I wasn't eating healthy. I was in the Army. I was probably in the best shape of my life, I thought, physically, but I wasn't taking care of my body as far as what I'd eat. My go-to meal was a number 1 at McDonald's. Back then they had supersize, and I supersized every meal.
Every day.
Yeah. And at my peak weight was 183 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And at 5'8", 183 is not an ideal weight. So when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I was again in the military. So I went to Portsmouth Naval Hospital, and they sent me through a nutrition class and sent me to an internal medicine specialist. I think she was a captain in the Navy. But I remember what she said to me about my health. She said, first on, diabetes is not a death sentence. So you can do one or 2 things. You can either live with it or die from it. You tell me what you want to do. Like, what kind of choice is that, lady? Of course I want to live. So she said, well, that's your choice. Then you have to make better choices in life. You have to eat differently. You have to eliminate that sugar from your diet, and you have to exercise. I know you Army guys are rough and tough and you think you exercise all the time, but you're not taking care of the important thing, your internals. Yeah. So, hey, I hated what she said, but I took it to heart. And 30 pounds later, I'm a lot healthier. Probably why I still look like I'm 45.
Yeah, you do. You do.
But at age 67, hey,
yeah,
you know, I think for real, I'm in the best shape of my life, mentally and physically.
Yeah, and like I said, that's important if you're a referee, and
yeah.
And that's probably something, you know, that you enjoy doing, but it's probably something that probably help extend your life or save your life, because the diabetes can turn into something that could be devastating to you, health wise.
Yes.
So, you know, and just like you said, and there's a lot of people in the military, they think because they exercise and everything, but it's a whole lot more to it as far as taking care of your body. And yeah, I just wanted to know what you know. How did you just stay? Because that's a lot of running up and down the court, and it's probably some of the best things for the people involved that's doing it. So that's a part of that passion you have to be able to keep up with those young folks.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Because every year they're 16, 17, and 18, and every year we're going up a little more.
Yeah, and they can run forever.
Yep.
So what would you tell? I don't know, you know, just like I asked you in the beginning, did you think about as at a young age, I want to be a referee? I don't think too many people at a young age that's on their mind. I want to be a referee. But what would you tell some if you were talking to basketball players? Because the reality is not all basketball players at the high school level are going to advance. You know, you might get to college. I remember when I went to college, the Virginia Union had a freshman team before the girls team. Didn't have a girls team at that time, so they had a freshman team. So my roommate convinced me to go out for it, and I went out for it, and that's when I realized a 6'5" center in college wasn't going to cut it. You know, the first few games I had, we played some junior colleges, and I'm playing with my back to the basket, and the guy behind me in the junior college was 6'11", and I'm 6'5", and I was the center. So I said that to say some players have to realize that, you know, you might not go all the way to the NBA or whatever. So what would you tell them if, you know, saying you might want to look at this later on in life, being a referee? How would you convince them that might be something that they would want to consider later on?
Well, I would tell them that it's a way to stay connected to the game, first of all.
Right.
Secondly, it's probably the best paying part-time job you could ever have. So for our recreation games, and recreation games usually last an hour or less, it pays $37.50. So let me say if you're getting $37.50 an hour, it's probably a pretty good part-time job.
Yes.
And if you work 3 to 4 games making $37.50 an hour, it's probably a pretty good part-time job. Now high school JV game, which again is about an hour long, pays $50 an hour. Some of our varsity games pay up to $80 an hour. So I look at that as a very good part-time job. And if you're working 3 to 4 varsity games a week, pretty good part-time job. And the good thing about it is right now is the season for training because it's off season. We have a class that's starting Wednesday at the Boo Williams Sportsplex in Hampton. And you can go to our website and sign up for the training class. And the website is thevboa.com, THEVBOA.com. And you can sign up for our new officials class And by the time the regular season comes around, you could be out there taking advantage of this part-time job.
Yeah, is there a age limit to when you can sign up? It might be someone out there that jogs every day or stays in shape and eats healthy, but in his 40s, he decides, I want to try that. Is that a possibility for someone that this will be their first time trying, signing up for a class, but they're in their 40s?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have people that age starting all the time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I started my grandson about a month ago. He's 17. We're starting kids as young as 16 years old. And if I was 16 and I could make $37.50 an hour, it might be something I'd be.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely something there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of opportunities. Age should not be a restriction. We have folks at all ages coming out to be officials.
And now, are you required to have a medical, to show proof that you are physically fit? I mean, you don't want people coming in there and they might have, and they might not know it, but they have heart murmurs or something like that.
Right. We don't require anybody to take a physical exam beforehand, but I would recommend to anybody who's about to enter into some strenuous activity to get checked, at least as a minimum, a basic physical examination, because there are a lot of hidden health problems that we, especially as an African-American culture, don't know about. There are a lot of hidden deficiencies out there. And I would say to anybody who's interested in becoming an official to, at a minimum, get a sports physical before you come out there and participate in some rigorous activity.
Look, I have to give a shout out to Mike Farrell, and he, I know him because I'm a heart transplant recipient, and so is he. Okay. And when he was waiting on his heart, and he had the LVAD like I had, which is the heart pump that you put on. He was actually coaching girls basketball in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And he had the LVAD on him. And a lot of people didn't know because he would have on a big shirt and you couldn't see the device. And he did that for about 9 years,
wow.
with actually in heart failure, but he had that heart pump that was keeping him going. And I just see that he's watching. So shout out to you, Matt, and he recently, maybe about 2 years ago, got his heart. But for 9 years, he coached girls basketball. So, you can do it, in all kinds of shapes and medical conditions. I want to ask you, go back to the basketball. I see, and Matt does this. I see people now. He's an official at ODU at the table, timekeeper, or you see officials at the table with the stripes on. They are part of the actual team. Well, they're sitting there with the stripes, or are they part of the school? Or what's their position?
Well, the person at the table that with the striped shirt, he's the official scorer. He or she.
Okay. Well, that's what Matt does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's not connected with that actual officiating team that comes to the game.
Right. Not of the 3-man crew, but everybody that works at the table is part of our crew. The official scorer, the timekeeper, the 20-second clock operator, the 30-second clock operator, as well as the official scorer that keeps the clock. They're all considered part of our crew.
Okay, it's all a well-oiled machine.
Yep.
And you mentioned about the three-person crew, and that wasn't always the case. It was mostly when I was playing, and a lot of people were playing, it was just two.
Right.
Why did it go to the three? And I'm sure it's an advantage. It helps, really call the game. But why did it go to? What was the reason for going to the three?
Well, it went to 3-person because everybody thought that the more eyes you have on the play with everybody officiating a certain area, you could better manage the game. 6 6 eyes on 10 players is much better than 4 eyes on 10 players, because there's always a spot on the floor that you may not be in position to see something. And it's a lot of things we call off-ball activity that happens on the court. And the more eyes you have watching that activity, the better outcome you'll have in a game.
Yeah,
and,
you do see fouls called away from the play.
Yeah. But everybody has a primary area of responsibility, or primary coverage area, as we refer to it on the official side. And you're responsible for what happens in that area. However, there are instances that you have to come outside of your primary coverage area to get something that one of the officials may not have seen, because he could be stacked behind a group of players or whatever. So we watch the entire court. It says referee view globally, but referee locally. That means be responsible for your primary coverage area, but also be aware of what happens on the entire court.
Yeah, so, sort of like what football has been doing for a long time. You had certain referees out there watching certain aspects of the game.
You got line judges, you got back judges. Yeah. So, you know, the more eyes you have on the play, the better game you're going to have. Yeah,
so that's why I wanted to segue into, you know, something we talked about as well, about, and you hear a lot of people say, well, you know, you don't want the referee to determine the results of the game. Like when the game is close at the end and time is running out, and it might be a 1 point difference, or one play can determine which way the game goes, and a foul is called, and then they say, well, the referee determined the end of the game. Talk about how you feel about that, because you heard that a lot, and I think when we talk, we mentioned about, you know, certain things, the way the game might end up is not always, you know, on the referee, but he still has to make those calls. So talk about that, because a lot of blame is put on the referees, I think, unfairly. You know, even though I played and I didn't agree with some of the calls that were called on me, but like I said, most of the time we knew when we fouled. You know, you get flopping.
Right.
You know, that's a part of the thing. I mean, it was nothing. If we hit the floor, it's because somebody came in there and knocked us to the floor, and there was either obvious call or offensive call. But talk about that, because, you know, like I said, you hear a lot of people putting the game end results on a referee, which is, I think, is sometimes unfair.
Right. I think it's unfair too. But what referees have to do is be consistent. If you're making a call in the first quarter, you should probably be making that same kind of call in the fourth quarter. And that's all coaches and players want us to be, is consistent on our calls. Now, we won't always get it right. Even the best officials, the NBA officials, calm down, buddy. The best officials,
he agrees,
are only about 90% correct. But I can tell you, we all want to be correct on every call we make. And it's not always did he make the right call, or did he make the call that was good for the game. And the best officials make good decisions. And in that case, that's what we have to do more of. Hang on. I think he wants to go outside. Hold on just a second.
Okay. Go ahead. Take time. I want to thank everybody for watching. We're here with Ronald Cross, an official, high school official for 47 years. And now he's president of the Virginia Basketball Officials Association, which covers all of the officials in the state of Virginia. So it's just a matter of staying connected. One of the things we talked about is a lot of former basketball players, in order to stay connected with the game of basketball, become officials. And I'll ask him when he gets back. It's definitely probably an advantage if you played the game before to become an official, but probably not necessarily a requirement. So we're going to let him go out, and all of us who have dogs or animals and pets, or who have had pets know that, when they want to go out, you have to answer that call and let them go out. But I want to give a shout out to a few people out there. Jermaine Green, thanks for watching, and Matt Burrell, I think I said that, and Sabrina Austin Colliston, thanks for watching. And who else did I see up there? Carl Robinson, thanks for watching. Gail Robinson, thanks for watching. Joe Avant, Joe Nugget, thanks for watching if you're still watching. And Tally, thanks for watching. Okay, everything else okay?
Yep,
You had to
everything.
referee that part too, so
Right.
it
Yeah.
goes beyond the basketball court. But you were talking about how some referees are unfairly blamed, and and I'll add this too. Sometimes it looks like just like a call might be missed on one end, and then it's call on the other end against the team, and a lot of people say, okay, that's a makeup call. So does that happen? But go ahead and continue what you were talking about as far as the referees.
Right. So as officials, all we want to be is consistent in our calls. You're not going to please everybody with the calls you make, because at any given time, half of them agree with you and half of them don't. It depends on which team they're supporting. So all we have to do is make sure we're in the best position to make the best call, to make the right decision that's going to best benefit the game. What we don't want to do is take the players out the game, because, again, in my pre-games with team captains, when we get together in the middle of the floor to talk before the game starts, I say to them, hey, look around these stands. Nobody came to see us officiate. They came to see you play. So the better you play on the court, the better the game is going to be. I'd rather go through the game and not blow my whistle unless the ball is out of bounds. I don't want to call fouls unless the contact disrupts rhythm, speed, balance, or quickness. That by rule is a foul. So there are different levels of contact as far as fouls are concerned. There's incidental contact. Let's say two players are diving for the ball, they crash into each other and go to the floor. Sure, there was contact, but by rule, that's not a foul because they did nothing to gain an advantage. There's other types of contact. There's marginal contact, where say you go to the basket to make a layup, you get tipped on the arm, the ball goes in. In most cases, seasoned officials won't call a foul on that. Everybody is, that's an and one, that's an and one. No, that's marginal contact. He played through the contact, he finished the shot, he did his purpose. And then, of course, a foul by rule is illegal contact that disrupts rhythm, speed, balance, or quickness. So if you accept all three of those premises, you have to believe that basketball in itself is a contact sport. So I believe that. And again, I manage the game with those principles in mind. And I think based on the years I've been on the court, that I can say I'm a pretty good official. And
I think so too. I've seen many games that you've been in, and yes, you are, and it helps. Like you said, it helps with the three-person officials, but on the high school level. But now, when you move up to the college level, just saying it's a lot of other things that they do now. Even calls by the referee can be reviewed, or plays. And a lot of times they determine if a player is thrown out the game, or if what kind of foul it is. Is it flagrant foul, or is it personal foul? So it's a lot of help being given to the game now to make sure it's called right. So, and that's another reason why I say it's kind of unfair to blame the referees for the outcome of a game, but that's a good go-to for a lot of people. And most players understand the role of the referee and respect that. And it's just a lot of a lot of theater going on out on the court now with certain players. What do you mean? What do you mean? You know you fouled that person, but
Yeah.
sometimes it helps, and it just helps that player look like I didn't foul, but you just stuck your finger in that player's eye.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's another thing we don't have on the high school level in most cases.
It
We don't
probably won't
have,
ever get to that on the high school level.
well,
Do you
they
think?
do have video review in some states. It just hasn't come to the Commonwealth of Virginia yet. But the advantage you have on college level and above is that you have a video replay or video review, whereas in high school we are actually watching the play in real time.
Right.
So all we can do is make the best decision based on what we saw.
Would that be something that you all would embrace? As far as, because sometimes it possibly could reverse a call.
It could.
That wouldn't be a problem.
No, oh, absolutely not, because all we want to do is get the call right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, every time I blow the whistle, I want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't put air in the whistle unless I know 100% that that's what I saw or that's what happened. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody won't agree with me. You said Jermaine Green. Jermaine might agree with me.
Well, his comment said, you were a good coach.
Oh,
good referee. Good referee, rather.
Appreciate you, Jermaine.
Yeah, I know. He's the father of a basketball player, so you know how the fathers can be.
I met one of his other sons out in an AAU game that I did a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, so, you're a father. Your sons never foul because you taught them not to foul.
Right.
But your sons are foul, but they never foul. But anyway, shout out to Jermaine Green there.
Yep, good people.
Yeah. So we're winding down now, and I want to say I appreciate you coming on, and I think it's important to, for a referee, to be able to talk to people and let them know, where you're coming from, your mindset, and what was your motivation to get into refereeing, and your passion for it now, and some of the ins and outs of what goes on within a referee when he's out there making those calls. And like you said, you want to get it right. You're not out there to hurt a team one way or another, but if you foul, you foul. If you violate the rules, you violate the rules. And that gets, before I end, I'll say this, the coaches of the teams, they have a mandatory meeting or something they have to go to, because the rules, even if the rules don't change from year to year, you still have to make sure as a coach that they're familiar with the rules, because you don't want to have to go to a game and you have to explain. Well, sometimes you do explain the rule. It's certain rules you probably will have to explain, or you have to explain why you made that call to some coaches. But are they required to go to? I don't know what I wouldn't call them classes, but to a seminar or something like that, to make sure they're up on the rules or any changes that might have taken place off season.
Yeah, well, every year the Virginia High School League gives a video clinic that each head coach is required to take. It's probably a 45-minute video session. We used to have an in-person meeting prior to COVID, but what my association is doing, and we're going to make it available to all districts that we cover, is to go in and do one-on-one with coaches and athletic directors, because all answers aren't always given through the video clinic. So we want to do an in-person with all coaches and athletic directors to let them know where we stand, to get their opinion of where they stand. And we want to all come together to make the game a much smoother game, because the kids deserve that. And as the Virginia Basketball Officials Association, we want to offer them that.
Oh, okay. I just looked at a question from Matt. I told you he was a coach, and now he was wondering, why does our area not have a shot clock in high school games, but they have them in places like Northern Virginia?
Well, again, it depends on where you're located. It hasn't come this way. and each area has to adopt that. Shot clock is a good game, a good thing to add to the game because it keeps the game flowing.
Right.
It'll take some getting used to, and you could probably make the adjustment within a couple games. But I'm looking forward to the shot clock coming to our area.
Oh, okay. So who decides that? Because you're president of the Virginia Basketball Official Association. Even though you all cover the whole Virginia, there's still localities have the control
Right.
of certain groups.
It's not up to the officials. It's up to the Virginia High School League.
Okay. That's a completely different organization.
Right.
Okay. Well, yeah, that'd be nice to see that shot clock. So you don't have those slow down games, and that's a fan favorite, really.
Yep,
but like you said, it would take getting used to because sometimes there's nothing more exciting than having that game flowing.
Yeah, I would hate for them to go back to four corners like Phil Ford in North Carolina did.
Oh yeah, didn't that used to drive you crazy?
End of the game, 38-26. Come on, because you stalled the ball a whole half. It's crazy.
Yes. Okay, Hey Ron, I appreciate you coming on. And the last thing before we go off, if you might have mentioned it before, but if someone is interested in becoming an official here in the state of Virginia, give the information again on how they can get in contact you or find information on how to do that. So.
Okay, you can find the information on our website, and I'll spell it THEVBOA.com. The VBOA.com.
Okay, that sounds good.
Glad to have you. Thanks for your time, Slim. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And I look forward to having you back on here again because, during the year, when the basketball season starts, there might be some questions we might have about certain things, whatever you can talk about if you, as long as it doesn't involve whatever you're refereeing.
Right.
It might be on a college level or pro level or something like that because I'm sure you kind of keep up with some of that. So as far as the rules, people need to understand the rules. That's one thing.
Yep. Yeah. Makes a difference.
Yes. Yeah. Take care, my brother. I appreciate
you, my brother. You do the
same.
You
have a good day. So I'm looking forward to. Oh, I forgot to mention the modeling thing. Because people go on Facebook and they see all those models. Is that something you do for yourself, or is that something that you do professionally, or something like that? Because you have some great shots out there, man.
Thank you. That's something I do in my spare time.
No, okay.
Hence the beard coming back. So we'll see where it goes in the next couple months.
Yeah, that's all a part of the look, brother. And we had to get to, it's like a tale of two Rons.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, take care, man. I appreciate you.
All right.
Thanks everybody, and remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share this show. We'll see you next time. Take care.